So I thought I'd do something different today. Um, and prove to you how close we are to a catastrophic event happening. This is the August 2025 issue of The Atlantic. And before I start, look at that cover. Okay. 80 years on the edge. If you don't have a copy of it, get yourself a copy of it as soon as you can and read it for yourself. Whenever they do things like this, you better worry. You better worry. And just to get you a little insight of what the Atlantic magazine is all about, and of course, if you've been watching or studying, you know that Atlantic is just a different way of saying Atlantis, because the United States is the new Atlantis. The Atlantic is an American magazine and multi-platform publisher based in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. It features articles on politics, foreign affairs, business, and the economy, culture, and the arts, technology, and science. It was founded in 1857 in Boston as the Atlantic Monthly, a literary and cultural magazine that published leading writers' commentary on education, the abolition of slavery, and other major political issues of that time. So basically, you better read what they're writing in this magazine. And that was 1857. Its founders included Francis H. Underwood and prominent writers Ralph Waldo Emerson, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and John Greenleaf Whittier. James Russell Lowell was its first editor during the 19th and 20th centuries. The magazine also published the Atlantic Monthly Almanac. The magazine was purchased in 1999 by businessman David G. Bradley, who fashioned it into a general editorial magazine primarily aimed at serious national readers and thought leaders, quote unquote. In 2017, he sold the majority interest in the publication to Lorraine Powell Jobs Emerson Collective. The magazine was published monthly until 2001, when 11 issues were produced. Since 2003, it has published 10 per year. It dropped monthly from the cover with the January-February 2004 issue and officially changed the name in 2007. In 2024, it announced that it will be resuming publishing monthly issues in 2025. I wonder why. And this is the cover of the August issue. In 2016, the periodical was named Magazine of the Year by the American Society of Magazine Editors. In 2022, its writers won Pulitzer Prizes for feature writing. And in 2022, 2023, and 2024, The Atlantic won the award for general excellence by the American Society of Magazine Editors. In 2024, it was reported that the magazine had crossed 1 million subscribers and become this is a typo, and became profitable 3 years after losing 20 million in a single year and laying off 17% of its staff. As of 2024, the website's executive editor is Adrienne Lefrance. Kind of person you got to be. She better be French. She better be French. An American journalist. What kind of ego? That's not this lady's real name. That's not this lady's real name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And there's not much information about her. So if there's not information about her, you know there's something up. La France. Come on. Who's loyal to? Who is she really loyal to? The editor-in-chief is Jeffrey Goldberg. They. And the CEO, Nicholas Thompson. Whoa! Be ready if you look at a picture of this guy. He looks like the Wolfman. But anyway, so there you go. This little bit information. Go to your Wikipedia, Google it for yourself, and get more in-depth. When I have an opportunity, hopefully, I'll go and read a little bit more. Maybe I can find some brotherhood connections. But there you go for now. And here are some of the articles. Again, a picture of the nuke. Nuclear Roulette, the only way to win is to stop playing, by Mr. Jeffrey Goldberg. The new arms race. As American power recedes, South Korea and even Japan may pursue the bomb, by Ross Anderson. It's good to read the names. You can find out. You can really, when you hear the names, come to an understanding of who it is you're dealing with. Damn you all to hell! How Hollywood taught a generation to fear nuclear catastrophe, by Tom Nichols. And I think we're going to read that one. So let me go to page 36. By Tom Nichols. How Hollywood taught a generation to fear nuclear catastrophe. And here are some of the pictures that he uses, or they use in the magazine. Planet of the Apes, Godzilla. Of course, the classic. Oh my God, the classic movie, which I forgot the name of right now. Let me see. They should have it here somewhere. And you thought that movie was just a sci-fi film. I even owned the damn movie. I forgot the name of it. It'll come to me. And now I got to look for it. Well, anyway, I don't want to waste too much time. But you know the movie this is. They even made a remake, not that some years ago, starring Keanu Reeves. Okay, why they even remade it, I don't know. I guess just to update it or whatever. But those are the films that they're using here. And there's another one here at the bottom. I don't know what that is. But just so you know, that these movies are telling you truth. Even though you think They're weird subjects that couldn't possibly ever happen. They have a common theme that deals with reality. So, Godzilla represents a nuke. This film, a nuke. Planet of the Apes, of course. The reason why the planet got overrun by apes because of a nuke, the original film. So let me read this article. Like, once again, damn you all to hell. Is that a threat? By Tom Nichols. Photo illustrations by Mike McQuaid. How Hollywood taught a generation to fear nuclear catastrophe. Are you ready? Back in the late 2000s, I was teaching a class on nuclear weapons to undergraduates who had mostly come of age after the fall of the Soviet Union. As I tried to explain the fall of the Soviet Union, that's another fucking lie. It never fell. Just like today, they're telling you that the government shut down. Bullshit, the government never shuts down. Can you imagine what would happen if the government actually did shut down? Be careful who you listen to. Be careful what you believe. Okay. As I tried to explain what it was like to grow up worrying about a sudden apocalypse, a student raised his hand and said, "What were you so afraid of?" I mean, sure, nuclear weapons are bad. Oh my God. But, and here he gave up with a puzzled shake of his head, as if to say, what was the big deal? I paused to think of a better way to explain that the annihilation of the world was a big deal. And let me put my reading glasses on. People who grew up during the Cold War, which was a sham, sorry, all you older folks out there who were raised to believe that the Cold War was real, it was fake, orchestrated to continue on your fears. That's right, all those adventures James Bond he had with some Russians, all bullshit. They're in cahoots, just like today. Just like today, they're all in cahoots. And it doesn't matter what president we got, they're always in cahoots. All these goddamn government leaders are in cahoots. They all serve master. The only true enemy is us, the people. Always has been, always will be. So all you idiots and morons out there talking about Putin and Trump are together against the Democrats and the Republicans are with this China and it. No, they're all together. We the people are their real enemies. So wake the fuck up. I paused to think of a better way to explain that the annihilation of the world was a big deal. People who grew up during the Cold War, as I did, internalize this fear as children. We still tell our campfire tales about hiding under school desks at the sound of air raid sirens. Such things seemed mysterious and even irrelevant to my students in the 21st century. And that's because your educational system has raised a bunch of morons and idiots. Why don't you say what you're really trying to say? He knows what I know. The school system is churning out idiots, and they're bigger idiots every fucking year graduating. Just watch TikTok. Oh boy. And then it occurred to me, they haven't seen the movies. The propaganda. That's right. The movies are propaganda. During the Cold War, popular culture provided Americans with images of and a vocabulary for nuclear war. Mushroom clouds, DEFCON alerts, exploding buildings, fallout shelter signs. These visuals popped up in even the frothiest forms of entertainment, including comic books, here we go, James Bond movies, and music videos. The possibility of a nuclear holocaust was always lurking in the background, like the figure of death hiding among revelers in a Bosch triptych. Sorry, I don't know how to say this fucking word. Triptych. And we could imagine it because it had been shown to us many times on screens big and small. Ensuing generations have grown up with their own fears, terrorism, climate change, and now AI are upending life across the globe. And nuclear war might seem more like a historical curiosity than a concrete threat. But at this moment, Russia and the United States each have roughly 1,500 deployed strategic warheads, many of them on alert, with thousands more in their inventories. This is an improvement over the madness of the Cold War. Oh, the madness of the Cold War. Oh, man, if this guy's a car salesman. When the superpowers were sitting on tens of thousands of deployed weapons, but the current global stockpile is more than enough to destroy hundreds of cities and kill billions of people. The threat remains, but the public's fears, along with the movies that explore them, have faded away. Americans need new films to remind new generations, but Cold War era movies are not just relics. The horrors! Happy Halloween! And now that I said that, be aware that we are in the spooky season, and these motherfuckers love it. They love it. While your kids out there trick-or-treating, initiates, that's one of them laughing, initiates of the Brotherhood, like that motherfucker laughing, are committing real crimes. Murder! Just think about that. These people don't play. The threat remains, but the public's fears, along with the movies that explore them, have faded away. Americans need new films to remind new generations, but Cold War era movies are not just relics. The horrors they depict are still possible. Less than a decade after the Trinity test. The Trinity test? See, y'all read these books, watch these movies, you watch Oppenheimer, but you don't even understand the words that they use. The Trinity test? And the atomic bombings of Japan. Actually, they only bombed 2 islands of Japan. They didn't even bomb Japan itself. Filmmakers were tapping into public anxieties about a nuclear arms race. At the end of the 1951 classic, there we go, this is the name, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Wait a minute, I thought that was about aliens. Oh, yeah. The aliens came down. Remember? Aliens came down and they were like, what y'all doing? Y'all, you better stop fucking around with these nuclear weapons. They're going to kill you. Now, what kind of sense does that make? Think about it. An alien comes down to Earth with a goddamn weapon itself, a large robot, and gives the Earth an ultimatum: stop fucking around with the nukes, or we're going to destroy you. Talk about a no-win situation. Do you ever actually sit down, watch these movies, and think about the plot? The alien is using a weapon, threatening to use a weapon if we don't stop using our weapons. Oh my God. What's the point of this motherfucker? And of course, the alien looks human. And you better believe that the real motherfuckers who consider themselves descendants of the alien gods, they're all human. It's all bullshit. At the end of the 1951 classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still, a handsome alien named Klaatu tells the people of Earth that other civilizations in the galaxy have decided that humans cannot be trusted with the power of the atom. He explains that these civilizations long ago agreed to give control of their military power to unstoppable robots programmed to eradicate aggressors without mercy. Earth, Klaatu says, must agree to this arrangement or be destroyed. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose, huh? Let them destroy it. Why? So you're basically, so I'm coming at you. Think about this. I'm coming at you with a gun, telling you, stop using your gun, or I'm going to kill you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh, man, they can't wait to take away your guns. They can't wait to take away your guns. Oh, boy. We shall be waiting for your answer, he says politely, and then takes off in his spaceship, leaving the gobsmacked Earthlings staring into the heavens. This grim ultimatum was aimed at moviegoers who had just lived through World War II. Their children, the baby boomers, would get their first exposure to nuclear fears through monster movies and popcorn flicks that would later air regularly on television. In the 1954 horror feature, Them, remember that one with the big giant ants? Nuclear explosions in New Mexico, the site of the Trinity test. Oh, you think that was by accident or on purpose? And y'all believe that the movies have nothing to do with the agenda of who's ever running the government. Y'all stupid. Y'all stupid. If you don't think the powers that be who run the government for real don't have any influence in the fucking movies. God damn, y'all stupid. In the 1954 horror feature, Them, nuclear explosions in New Mexico, the site of the Trinity test, irradiate a nest of ants, turning them into man-eating giants. Them suggests that radioactive monsters had been unleashed by nature as a kind of revenge on mankind for playing with nuclear fire. We may be witnesses to a biblical prophecy come true, a government scientist warns. Other thrillers followed this formula, including the 1954 debut of the original king of the monsters, Godzilla, who was awakened by nuclear testing. By the mid-1950s, the superpowers had created thermonuclear arms, which dwarfed the power of previous atomic weapons. Both the original Godzilla film, produced in Japan less than a decade after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the 1956 version released in the States with a performance by the actor Raymond Burr, spliced in for American audiences, are somber and even daring for the time. They depicted victims of radiation sickness and featured a shocking ending. The scientist who invents a way to destroy Godzilla commits suicide. Banzai! Rather than let his knowledge be used to create another super weapon. As the boomers grew up, the number of nuclear weapons skyrocketed, with estimates of about 5,000 warheads in 1956 and then a peak of more than 70,000 in the 1980s. And remember, folks, that this is the information that the enemy is giving you. Okay? You can't believe it. All right? So just keep that in mind. Don't believe it just because somebody with authority tells you. They'll never really tell us the truth. How many they're made, how many are around, they'll never tell us. Nuclear conflict became an extinction level proposition. Depictions, remember that? Y'all remember that? Extinction level event by a well-known rapper. And then a couple of years later, 9/11. You better ask somebody. Nuclear conflict became an extinction level proposition. Depictions of nuclear war became more serious and disturbing, breaking Hollywood conventions about happy endings. For many in the boomer generation, On the Beach, the 1957 novel and 1959 movie, became a touchstone because it wasn't about monsters or aliens, but about people facing death from the fallout of nuclear war. In 1964, 2 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, another orchestrated event, had pushed the world to the edge of the nuclear abyss. Failsafe and its black comedy twin, Dr. Strangelove, presented audience with the nightmare of accidental nuclear war, a fear that appeared on screen with more frequency as nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them became more varied and complicated. And let me grab my water. What's the point of all this? Why am I reading this article? To prove to you that we are close to something big that's going to happen. Look up the October surprise. Find out what that's all about. In Failsafe, Moscow is about to be destroyed by errant U.S. bombers when the Soviet premier tells the U.S. president, played by Henry Fonda, that no one is to blame for what is obviously an electronic error. Fonda rejects this absolution. We're to blame, both of us. We let our machines get out of hand. After Moscow is obliterated, Fonda orders the nuclear destruction of New York City as atonement, hoping to avert full Soviet retaliation. And let me just stop here and say something. At the beginning of this article, this guy's saying that the new generation in the 2000s weren't exposed to nuclear threats in the movies. That's bullshit. These motherfuckers were raised on Terminator. So this guy must be off his rocker. Okay. Like many Cold War kids, I saw these movies on TV in later years. They had a particularly powerful grip on me. Once I realized I was being raised on a bullseye. My family home was next to an Air Force nuclear bomber base, a target that the Soviets would destroy in the first minutes of a war. Failsafe disturbed me so much as a boy that I bought the book in college to see if the novel ends as bleakly as the movie. It does. Years later, I assigned the book to my students. Their reaction to the ending? The president can't do that. To which I responded, are you sure? Nuclear war made routine appearances on the small screen, sometimes as allegories on Star Trek and the Outer Limits. No one did more to bring nuclear issues into living rooms than Rod Serling. Oh, you better find out about Rod Serling. Better find out what he was about. Whose pioneering show, The Twilight Zone, sometimes explored the consequences of living with the bomb. One episode, The Shelter, showed neighbors turning against one another when informed of an imminent nuclear attack. Another, Time Enough at Last, included a classic Serling twist. After a bookworm emerges from a lunch break in his bank's vault to find the world incinerated, he happily sits down with a stack of books and then accidentally breaks his only pair of eyeglasses. Serling was also responsible for perhaps the biggest gut punch of 60s cinema, the ending of Planet of the Apes. Loosely based on a satirical French novel, the script by Serling and Michael Wilson follows an American astronaut, Charlton Heston, after his ship crashes on a planet where a civilization of talking apes rules over mute humans. At the movie's end, which departed from the books, Heston escapes his captors, makes his way to a barren beach, and discovers the ruins of the Statue of Liberty. Like if there was a nuclear attack, that statue would be around. Come on. Realizing that he's on an Earth turned upside down by nuclear war, he becomes delirious with rage. You maniacs! He wails, pounding his fists into the surf. You blew it up, oh damn you! God damn you all to hell! The scene then fades to black, and the credits roll, with only the sound of waves lapping at the beach. When I showed these final minutes to young students, many of them were as stunned as audiences had been in 1968. Some students admitted that they were unsettled and even moved by the simple tableau of Heston weeping in front of the last symbol of an extinct civilization. In the 1970s, audiences were becoming harder to shock. But the black comedy, A Boy and His Dog, 1975, did just that and became a cult film. Don Johnson roams a nuclear wasteland in the far-off year of 2024, accompanied by a telepathic talking dog as he searches for food and sex. Johnson finds both. He lets his dog eat the girl he thought he loved, but who, in the end, tried to betray him. A Boy and His Dog warned that civilization is a facade, and that we're one war away from becoming depraved brutes. I think we're already there. I left for college in the late 70s, thinking I would major in chemistry. But the Cold War, oh my God, this guy in the Cold War. But the Cold War was heating up again, and I decided to study the Russian language and Soviet affairs. During the drive from Massachusetts to New York City for graduate school on a late summer day in 1983, I heard the news that the Soviets had shut down a civilian South Korean airliner, killing hundreds. Tough day to start studying this stuff, my father said in the car. Ronald Reagan was in his first term. The Soviet Union was led by a former chief of the KGB, Yuri Andropov, and nuclear arms negotiations with the Soviets were floundering. Too many young people nuclear war felt more imminent than at any other time in our lives. It apparently felt that way in Hollywood too. The first half of the 80s produced a battery of films about nuclear war, but none had the impact of a made-for-TV movie that premiered on November 20th, 1983. Remember that date? These bastards love dates. November 20th, 1983. About 100 million people, more than 60% of the TV viewing audience that night, tuned in to ABC to watch The Day After, about the horrifying impact of nuclear war on small town Kansas. And who crash landed in Kansas? Bum, 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 the Superman, the Beast. 666. The film left me greatly depressed. Reagan wrote in his diary, ABC followed the broadcast with a discussion among the astronomer Carl Sagan, the Holocaust survivor. Of course, you always got to get a Holocaust survivor in there for their opinion. How about a Nagasaki or Hiroshima survivor? That would have been more appropriate. But no, you always get World War II, Nazi Holocaust survivor in there. They always got an opinion. The Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, the writer William F. Buckley Jr., former cabinet secretaries Henry Kissinger, how I'm missing ya, and Robert McNamara, and Brent Scowcroft, the once and future National Security Advisor. The 80-minute session in front of a live studio audience was conducted with a seriousness long gone from TV in the 21st century. Sagan argued that the arms race was like being in a room awash in gasoline, and there are two implacable enemies in that room. One of them has 90,000 matches, the other has 7,000 matches. Each of them is concerned about who's ahead, who's stronger. Scowcroft firmly disagreed, but added with evident sincerity that he had great respect for Sagan's judgment. Not only did these panelists treat one another cordially, but they also assumed that the public was capable of following their complex discussion. That same month, Testament had hit movie theaters with scarcely any special effects and no dramatic shots of missile launches or mass incinerations. As in The Day After, instead, the quiet film depicts a California suburb spared a direct nuclear hit, slowly succumbing to radiation poisoning and starvation. In the span of 3 weeks, in prime time and on the big screen, Americans witnessed two vivid interpretations of the horrors of nuclear war, one explosive and terrifying, the other corrosive and elegiac. In 1985, I was 24 and finishing a graduate thesis on NATO options after a hypothetical Soviet attack in Europe. One night in Boston, where I was studying at Harvard's Russian Research Center, a Russian research center in Harvard, huh? Okay. I sat down to watch a BBC movie titled Threads. The film is so gruesome and relentlessly cold-hearted that it makes The Day After seem almost optimistic. The brief scenes of urban destruction in Threads are less disturbing than the film's prediction of what life would be like after a modern world is destroyed. When the main character, Ruth, gives birth alone in an abandoned farmhouse months after the nuclear attack. The camera does not look away as she chews through her daughter's umbilical cord. Later, the young mother must trade sex for dead rats to feed herself and her child. By day, I studied nuclear war details such as equivalent, megatonnage, and overpressure. Threads supplied haunting, ghastly images of what those concepts would look like in the real world. I turned off my television, and I did not sleep that night. Testament, The Day After, Threads, and War Games. For some reason, this guy's skipping Terminator. I don't know why. Which bridged Boomer and Generation X tastes and Gen X tastes by making computer hacking the trigger for a nuclear crisis, all debuted within 16 months of one another, signaling a wave of anxiety and a desire to process it collectively. What the hell's going on here? Let me see some here. Okay. And then it was over. Reagan and the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev signed the landmark nuclear arms treaty in 1987. 2 years later, the Germans tore down the Berlin Wall. A month after the wall fell, Gorbachev and Reagan's successor, George H.W. Bush, declared the end of the Cold War. Over the ensuing 36 years, filmmakers have found other public anxieties to fuel their stories. Plagues and climate change are now common themes. In the 2011 reboot of Planet of the Apes, the inversion of apes and humans happens not because of nuclear war, but because of a faulty pharmaceutical experiment. In 2008, the 2008 reimagining of The Day the Earth Stood Still has Klaatu warning Earthlings about ecocide rather than an atomic menace. The 2023 film Oppenheimer, about the father of the atomic bomb, made nearly $1 billion at the box office and won the Oscar for Best Picture. But Oppenheimer is a talky period piece, an exploration of a man and his mind, with only a flash-forward warning about doomsday tacked on to the ending. No panel of luminaries debated nuclear issues in prime time because of Oppenheimer. This year's Mission Impossible features a fail-safe callback, but it deploys nukes to raise the stakes for Tom Cruise's heroism, not to question the value of their existence or portray the carnage they create. The director, Catherine Bigelow, will soon release a movie set in the present about a surprise missile attack on the United States. Bigelow, who also directed the realistic military drama Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker, told me last year that she was alarmed by the lack of public debate on nuclear peril. My hope is that her next film can serve as a modern-day fail-safe or The Day After, and spur the kind of discussion that was inspired by those earlier movies. And expect it to. Some of these recollections might seem like nostalgia, but I do not miss the Cold War. I'm happy that Americans are growing up without daily reminders that everything we know and love could vanish in a flash of light. But is it possible to have a meaningful discussion about nuclear weapons without being a little frightened? As Adlai Stevenson, John F. Kennedy's ambassador to the United Nations, remarked after the Cuban Missile Crisis, perhaps we need a coward in the room when we are talking about nuclear war. And perhaps we still need movies about nuclear war to scare us into talking and remembering. Tom Nichols is a staff writer at The Atlantic. So get yourself a copy of this, read it online, look at the articles for yourself. They don't publish stuff like this for no reason. This is the August issue of The Atlantic, 2025. Something's coming, y'all. Something's coming. The propaganda is all around us. They're getting you ready for something. Maybe that October surprise, huh? Peace.